Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, redsea reefer 250. Happy birthday to you. Are you one? Are you two? Are you three? Are you four? Yeah.
Yep.
That's it. Hello and welcome back to Amrazul TV. The tank is now 4 years old officially. Yay! So to celebrate, instead of shooting on my regular iPhone, which, the iPhone is pretty good, but I thought we should do something a little bit fancy. So here is some footage that I shot with my Nikon DSLR and a couple of macro lenses. So I hope you enjoy the nicer visuals. It doesn't look like it's a 4-year-old tank, but it is indeed a 4-year-old tank. I obviously did a major reboot several weeks ago. There's a link about the reboot video. Ever since I did the reboot, my SPS collection, my new SPS collection has been looking really good, and things are coloring up really nicely. So I'm very excited about the future of the tank. So for this video, I thought I could just, for the new viewers and perhaps the people that have been following the tank but haven't really seen what I'm doing in behind the scenes, I'm going to go through a rundown of all the equipment and essentially how I run my system. So the tank is a redsea reefer 250, the first generation. It has a 55-gallon display and I think about a 10-gallon sump. Everything is stock. There's been no essentially modification from the system that I purchased from redsea. The lights, I run 3 Radion XR15s. They're running the SPS AB Plus program. And if you're interested about my PAR or the intensity of the lights, please check out my last video. There's a PAR map there. But effectively, I'm shooting to have all my SPS between 250 to 350. The flow in the display is provided by 4 power heads, 2 MP10s, Ecotech MP10s on the back, and they're running on Reef crest mode all the time. I think the maximum intensity of about 75%. And I also have 2 gyres, the XF230, and they run the alternating gyre mode all day long. So they alternate between 70 and 40, 70% and 40%, and when one gyre is at 70%, the other is at 40%. And I think I calculated my flow before, and it's well above the recommended 50%. I think it's a good like 70% turnover rate. The sump of the redsea reefer is fairly simple. I'm still using the stock overflow pipes, which take the water from the display into the sump. The water then passes through 2 redsea filters, the 200 micron filters. The water then flows into the skimmer compartment, and I'm running the redsea RSK 300. I really like that skimmer. I've been using it for I think about a year now. It's been fairly reliable. It's really easy to tune in, and I like that I could clean the neck using the built-in system that they have, the manual cleaner. I also have a small bag of CChem matrix carbon that is between the main compartment and the return compartment between the 2 baffles. The return pump is an Ecotech Vectra M1, and I have a T that takes some of the water from the return pump and it feeds my refugium. And in the refugium, I have a small bottle of Chaeto that I essentially cut every week to help with nutrient export. In the sump cabinet, I have the Apex controller, and it measures pH, salinity, and temperature in addition to controlling several of my other equipment on the tank. I keep salinity at 35 ppms and the temperature at about 79 degrees Fahrenheit. I have an Apex dose in the cabinet for dosing 2-part. I use the ESV B Ionic 2-part solutions, and I typically keep my alkalinity at 8.5 DKH and calcium at around 450 parts per million. I used to dose magnesium, but I haven't had to dose magnesium ever since I switched to ESV B Ionic 2-part, because I'm fairly certain that the calcium supplement also contains some magnesium. Over the past year, my magnesium has been fairly stable at about 1400 ppm without dosing. I also have an Apex Trident in the side cabinet beside the tank, and I think it does a great job at testing alkalinity. I test alkalinity 4 times a day. I find that the calcium and magnesium readings are a little bit erratic, especially when the reagent bottles are about 25 to 20% full. And it seems to be a kind of not just an issue with my system, but a common problem of the tridents. In the basement, right underneath the tank, I have two 50-gallon brutes. One of them is for storing RODI water, and I use a Tunzi osmolator, just a regular pump that comes with the Tunzi osmolator, to pump water from the basement 12 feet up to my tank. I really can't say enough good things about the Tunzi osmolator. I think it's a great system. I think it's probably the best ATO top-off system in the market today. In the other container, I have stored salt water, which I use for automatic daily water changes. I change about 2 liters of water every day, and this is managed through the Apex dose in the basement. I typically use the cheapest salt I could find, and that's often the instant ocean salt. I did do a little experiment with Tropic Marine Pro Reef salt, which is about twice as expensive as the instant ocean that I get here in Canada. It didn't really seem to improve my tank in any way, so I'm ditching the Tropic Marine salt. And when I was actually wrapping up my salt experiment, several viewers recommended that I try the Reef crystals. So that's the salt that I'm using now. In terms of livestock, I have 10 fish in total. 5 of them are wrasses. I do love my wrasses. So I have an 8-line flasher wrasse called Crazy 8, a carpenter flasher wrasse called Ruby Red, a pintail fairy wrasse called Rainbow Trout, a yellowtail tamarin wrasse called Panda, and a moyer leopard wrasse called Pink Lemonade. I have a yellow tang Lululemon, a royal grandma called Queen, 2 clownfish, Nemo and Valentine, and Kenny the algae-eating blenny. I do feed heavily. I feed the fish 4 times a day. I feed them frozen mysis in the morning. And no, I don't rinse the cubes. I simply just kind of dissolve them in some water, and all the shrimp and the shrimp juice goes in the water column. And I also use an automatic pellet dispenser to feed pellets 3 times a day. As a result of this heavy feeding, my nitrates and phosphates are a little bit on the higher side. My nitrates typically run around 5 to 10 parts per million, and whenever they do drop, I like to bring them back up by dosing potassium nitrate. My phosphates right now are around 0.2. I don't typically have to do anything to keep them above 0.1, so they're just kind of naturally above 0.1. Most of the corals in the tank are SPS, and there's a really nice kind of overview of my SPS collection in the previous video. I do have several non-SPS corals, so I do have a really nice Trachophilia. I have 2 different types of mushroom, and a very nice hammer colony. I've also recently got a clam, and so far, knock on wood, it's been doing really great. And that's it for the tank rundown. Fairly simple system. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting the channel over the past 4 years. It's been a lot of fun kind of interacting with everybody. Shout out to T Soro. There it is, man. There's your shout out. T Soro is one of my first subscribers, and somebody who is never shy at telling me how he really thinks about the decisions that I make in my tank, and I appreciate that, T. And thank you for all my other subscribers, new and old. It's been great kind of interacting with you over the last 4 years. And heads up for the folks that like my coral science videos, I'm working on a new video on the relationship between light and coral colors, especially acropora colors. So I think you're gonna like this one. I certainly learned a lot of new things about how how lights affect the colors of our corals, and what's the best way to kind of get the best fluorescence and color pigments in acropora. So that's gonna air soon. If you haven't already done so, click that little subscribe and click that little notification button so you don't miss any of my new videos. Thank you again, guys, and see you in the next video. Have a good one.